What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandy Jesus. Been a creative director for the last 6 years, and I've learned a lot, especially from competing with a ton of awesome creators. So I want to pass on some of the lessons that I've learned so that you can avoid some of the stress that I had to go through. Today's topic is what New York City taught me. I love this topic because so much of who I identify with is New York City. New York City, it's just, if you haven't been, it's such an unreal thing. But not just because what the movies make it to seem, it's just the environment. When you're there, the energy is intense, super intense, sometimes a little too intense. But when you're also a creator as well, it's it's the best place to be. It's so motivating. The creators there are like the best of the best. They, it's not easy being in New York City, so they're like super motivated, and they really want to be there because it's a huge challenge being in the concrete jungle. First thing I learned though was how to be confident, right? So many different people from all walks of life trying their best. That's what New York City is. When people say that New York City is a melting pot, that's exactly what it is. But it's also filled with dreamers. If you are a dreamer in your current community and it's not New York City, you probably won't get the excitement. One, you also got to recognize New York City is just full of people. So you're going to probably find more of your people in New York City or just bigger cities anyways. But New York City has just this intensity level that everybody just has to play at because one, the rent is super expensive. So if you're there, you want to be there. And also, since there's so many people and it just brings the best of the best to this location, it just forces you to level up at every single avenue. It's so awesome. But there's just so many diversities. Like when I think about being Dominican and I think about being an immigrant, you don't feel as special being in New York City and being an immigrant because it almost feels like everybody's an immigrant. When I went traveling though, I felt really cool being from New York City and being Dominican. It's like everybody's like, whoa, you're from New York City, oh, you're Dominican. But when you're there in New York City, you just blend right in. And that's one of the cool things too, because when you have limiting beliefs, you can kind of see somebody that looks exactly like you, that came from where you came from, doing incredible things, and it's so motivating. Number two, if you're good there, you're great everywhere else. Best training grounds. That's one thing that I only really realized in the last year was that, when you're working so hard in New York City, and I honestly have to thank Gary Vee for this because he brought a community of creators to New York City, and he also taught me this mindset of clouds and dirt. And it's something that I've always wanted to do but didn't know exactly how to do. But when you're in New York City, you kind of just learn the clouds and dirt mentality anyways, because regardless of how good you may think you are or how good people tell you are, you still kind of feel like you suck at all times because there's just so many people that are better than you at all times. It's really humbling. It's really humbling. Keeps your head down. But when you start to look up, when you start to travel the states and you start to see what other creators are capable of, you're like, wow, man, the level at which New York City plays at, it's just at a different level of intensity. And it's because we're all trying to impress each other there. When you go to other states, it's easier to impress the people there because they don't have such competition like they have in New York City. So if you're looking to become the best, I would say, maybe head to New York City if it makes sense for you. If you're willing to kind of grind and, live in an apartment, live in a closet room, then go for it because it's the best training grounds. You can also surround yourself with a community that will just push you like you've never been pushed before. Number three, compete. Don't let your competitors want it more than you. Do not rely on luck. That's one thing that I learned in New York City for sure, because when it comes to a position, especially a creative one, you can get outperformed in any moment. If somebody else wants it more than you, somebody will want your position, especially if the position you have is one you're excited about. Like if you're excited about your position, once you get it, do not slack, because somebody could just come right in, slide into the DMs of your client and steal your client. So you gotta be super hungry at all times. You gotta be super detail oriented. This was something that was hard for me because I was a creative, so I was very flowy, very just winging it. But if somebody else has got their stuff together just slightly more than you, and they reach your client and they outwork you, your job has just been taken. You cannot rely on luck. Luck will never feed you. Luck will never pay your bills. You have to prepare. I have this quote now, after I missed my first flight. Happiness is on the other side of preparation. If you want things to be easy, if you want things to be predictable, that's where rich people invest in in things that they can predict for a reason, because happiness is on the other side of preparation. If things are not predictable, that's where you find a lot of stress, and stress will literally kill you. You will literally die sooner if you're super stressed. So don't do that. Over prepare, plan for the worst, If you do that, you will succeed in every way and you will outperform your competitors. A tip I have is that if you can't make it to New York City, try to make it to New York City like virtually. One thing that we've learned from the metaverse, right, is like, you know, your brain doesn't know the difference between something physical and just something that's in your head. So if you can kind of just take in the New York City environment from your phone, from a YouTube video, I would suggest, you know, subscribing to my boy Brett Conti's YouTube channel, because he's a New York City YouTuber. He vlogs a lot, so you can kind of soak in the New York City energy. Join group chats too. If you're finding that the people in your environment are not pushing you to be your best, go join a New York City, you know, group chat, community, or whatever. And as they're pushing themselves, you can kind of just soak in some of that energy. And I think, you know, that will help you. Even if it just helps you a little bit, it's worth it, because if you're trying to be your best, you got to use any advantage you can. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. I drop 3 videos a day on topics like this. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. I'm from New York City. I'm now in Houston, but I'm going back to New York City tomorrow, so that'll be cool. If you guys have any questions, concerns, anything like that, first part of community is communication, so feel free to comment. I want to hear about your guys' opinions. And make sure to like the video if you haven't already. It helps the channel out, you know what I'm saying? We're all trying to make it out here. If you made it to the end, definitely like. But yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.